Hello, I'm Dr. Catherine Kraft, and this is the 8th in our series of videos on how to handle our anxiety during the time of COVID-19. I've entitled this video "To Cry or Not to Cry," and you'll soon see why. I'd like to offer this video particularly for our nurses, our doctors, first responders, nursing home staff, and to everyone who is on the front lines during this pandemic. The type of emotions that are coming up because of this pandemic are so intense, so extreme, that it is very difficult for everyone to handle. Those who are working 12 and 16-hour shifts are finding it particularly difficult to deal with the level of intensity that we're going through. Of course it's difficult because we have no instruction about how to handle something that rises to this level of emotional intensity. We've all had times of great emotional outbursts, but they lasted, I hope, a day, a week, a month, perhaps somewhat longer, and we got through it. This is different. This is the same level of intensity for our first responders and medical people, day after day after day after day. And from stories I'm hearing, there are all kinds of levels of coping with this intense emotional time. So if you're working 12 to 16-hour shifts, the usual and ordinary things you may have heard about for stress management are probably not going to cut it for you at this time. If you are exhausted after a 12 to 16-hour shift, I doubt you're going to go home and meditate for a half an hour, or do yoga for a half an hour, or diligently practice all of the other techniques that have been taught for decades now about how to handle your stress. We need something new, something more direct, something more visceral, and indeed, something more natural to us human beings. So I'm going to talk in this video about the 3 things that we already have or are doing that we can take and turn into tools to help ourselves during this very difficult time. And the first one of those tools is our thinking, our self-talk. I've already talked about this in past videos. Even if you are working 8-hour shifts that are exceedingly difficult, or double shifts, 16-hour shifts, you're going to have to look at yourself at how you're thinking and what you're thinking. Here is where understanding what self-talk is really comes into play as an aid that we can use to help ourselves. Find your negative self-talk, and as you are working, flip that around into something positive, whatever it is. Even if it's something as simple as telling yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I must do this, I can do this. Focus on the positive self-talk so that you don't allow fear-provoking self-talk, or for that matter, anger-provoking self-talk, to grab a hold of you and create that emotional, that visceral emotional response inside of yourself that is going to make your work enormously more difficult at that time. The first thing I want to suggest in terms of helping yourself with that self-talk is to really take a look at the difference in the source of your stressors. In general, as I see it, we have 2 sources of stressors. We have internal and we have external stressors. External stressors come from what's happening around you in the real world. Internal stressors come from your self-talk that creates your emotions inside of you. The response to the external stressor is to stop and think, look at your self-talk. If your self-talk is nothing but complaining, why is this happening, that shouldn't be happening, flip your self-talk into, what can I do? What can I do about this? How can I help? What positive action can I take? The response to a stressor that is coming from the physical world, from outside of you, is to think about what you can do to alter that stressor in some positive way, whether large or small. Now, when the stressor is coming from inside of you, because you're thinking fear-based thinking, and so you have the emotion of fear inside of yourself, that is a cue for you to say to yourself, stop it, stop that fear-based thinking. What can I tell myself instead? What positive self-talk can I tell myself? I can do it. I can do it. I have to do this. I am doing this. I'm okay. I'll get through this. I will do the best I can. Those are all examples of positive self-talk that can be used instead of hearing yourself say in your head, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, over and over, in any other fear-based self-talk. So there's the first thing that we are doing anyway, namely we are thinking anyway. We have self-talk going through our head anyway. So the first thing we can do is pay attention to that self-talk, notice the fear-based self-talk, and flip it around into something positive for yourself. The second and third thing that we can do for ourselves, I'm putting together in this video, because the second thing is taking a shower, and the third thing is crying. Yes, you'll see, continue to watch the video, how I'm putting those together. It has hurt me when I've heard nurses say, I'm crying in my car on the way home. Please don't do that. Crying while driving will impair your vision, and if you go to the point of sobbing, that could impair your coordination. Very dangerous when you're driving. Listen to this video and put into practice what I'm presenting to you, and you will be able to stop yourself from crying on the way home, or indeed while you're working your shift. When we go home during a time like this after a horrendous 8-hour shift or a 12 or a 16-hour shift, we don't want to meditate for an half an hour. Probably the most that we want to do is just shove something down our throat, take a shower, and crash in bed. That's real. If that's what you're going through, then you can take that to help yourself with the emotional stress of this time. Crying is nature's way of handling very, very intense outbursts of emotion inside of ourselves. It is during a time like this, when the emotions are so intense, that we begin to understand the price that we human beings pay for our collective beliefs about crying. Most people who are alive today have been raised with some type of message of, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Probably the worst version that many of us do remember is, you keep crying and I'll give you something to cry about. We have been given extremely strong messages, which we have internalized. Don't cry. Don't cry. So what's happening to many people today is fear-based thinking is rattling around. Think of it like this, neuroscientist, I know this is not going to be biologically accurate, but as a metaphor, think of it this way. All this fear-based thinking is rattling around in our frontal cortex, pushing against our eyeballs, and it wants to come out here. Here's where the tear ducts are. It wants to come out. And we're resisting it because we have this strong command inside of our heads that says, don't cry, don't cry. And this is making this time of intense emotion even more difficult for us. This gift that nature has given us, we don't use. We deny it to ourselves. Crying is nature's release valve for intense emotion. I want to read you something I read just recently that really underscores how collectively bad we are when it comes to understanding the nature and function of crying. Listen to this. Some recent research, the abstract of the research article says, research is only just beginning to uncover the neurobiologic underpinnings of human emotional crying. What year do you think that was written in? Seriously, all you doctors, nurses, neuroscientists out there, everybody, take a guess in your head right now. Pick a year. When do you think that was written? Got an answer? Got a year? That was written in 2018. Think of it. We're just beginning in 2018 to understand ourselves, the nature and function of crying, something the physical body, at least once upon a time, did naturally. We're just beginning to understand. So in a time of pandemic, no wonder it's so hard on us. Not only are we doing something totally new in that we're going through a pandemic and we've never been through anything like this before, and doing things like social isolation that we've never done before. That's all new and difficult enough. But on top of that, the tool, the release valve that nature has given us to deal with really, really intense emotion, oh no, we can't do that. We're denying ourselves that. And so we are unnecessarily making this time even harder on ourselves. As I've worked with people over the years, I've suggested steps in healthy crying. And we're going to put these up on the screen from time to time during this video so you can see. And if necessary, stop the video, come back and write it down so that you can follow this yourself. Healthy crying is a type of crying that we give ourselves permission to do to soothe ourselves, and because we know and feel inside of ourselves that all of this emotion-based thinking that's running through our frontal cortex is pushing on our eyeballs and wants to come out here in tears. So we let ourselves have what our bodies want us to do naturally. And here are the steps. The first step I call give yourself permission to cry. I've learned from people over the years that right here at the beginning is where we stop ourselves. As soon as we have that internal pressure to cry, we pull back because we're hearing a voice in our head that says, and you know what it says, don't cry, you better not cry, don't be weak, don't cry. So to reverse that, we literally have to take a hold of our self-talk and say to ourselves, no, that's old-fashioned 20th century junk. I refuse to bring that any further into the 21st century. I give myself permission to cry. Literally use that self-talk. Literally say to yourself, I give myself permission to cry. I can cry if I want to. It's okay. It doesn't mean I'm weak. It doesn't mean anything except I'm human going through a very, very emotion-provoking time. Give yourself permission to cry. That's number one. Now, number two, as you do this, be aware of some cautions. If you have children in your home and you're going to be crying in the shower, make sure that your children are not sitting on the floor in the hallway outside of the shower. You want to help your children, and we will cover that. We will talk about how to help your children in the next video. But right now we're just talking about you learning how to do self-soothing crying for yourself. So be sure your children are not around. Hearing their adults sob is very frightening to children, and that's why we don't do it in front of children. The second caveat is, if you, before all this happened, were in psychotherapy, if you've been in therapy for a long time, if you've ever been suicidal or are suicidal now or have any issues at all like that, do not do what I'm about to say without first talking to your psychologist, first talking to your therapist, perhaps in more than one session, about your feelings and about what you can do in a healthy way to express those feelings. So knowing that we do have to take all those things into mind, we can, if you're clear, if you feel okay about it, proceed to the third step. So in immediate preparation, the third step is immediate preparation. You're in the bathroom, you're by yourself, the door is closed, you get ready to go into the shower. Okay, see, all of this is something you're going to do anyway. You're going to take a shower anyway. So to teach yourself how to handle self-soothing emotional crying, you connect that to something you're doing anyway, which is taking a shower. So as you're getting ready to get in the shower, that's the time to purposely start thinking all of your fear-based thoughts, all of your emotion-based thoughts that you may have pushed away all day, all during your 12-hour shift, your 16-hour shift, whatever it is, just let it come up. Then the next step, you get in the shower and you stand with your back to the shower. This is important because the flow of the water, both the warmth of the water and the physical tactile sensation of the water beating on your skin will help you to relax. We don't realize it, but many times when we're holding emotion in, we're holding it in our upper body. And it can literally create an actual pain in our shoulder blades and a pain up into our neck. So when you're in the shower, at first, you stand with your back to the shower and you tell yourself again, I give myself permission to cry. I can cry if I want to. Go ahead, think of all of your fear-based and other negative thoughts at that time and cry if you want to. Now, do know that many people, even going this far, are still not going to cry. The brain is a powerful instrument. It is a powerful learning machine. And it does what we tell it. And if you are one of the people who has been telling yourself since you're 6 years old, or 8 years old, or 10 years old, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, if you've been telling that to yourself, your brain has gotten the message. It's in there. And so when you try to flip on yourself and tell yourself something different, it's okay to cry, that old voice is still up there in your head saying, oh no it's not, oh no it's not, don't you dare cry. That's okay. This is just part of the process. Accept that it is going to take some time for you. You're saying to yourself, I can cry if I want to, and maybe today I don't want to, and that's okay. But I am moving beyond the old self-talk to a place where I'm going to say, I will be the one to decide if I cry or not. Not those ancient voices in my head. I will decide, and if I want to cry, I will cry. Keep doing this, and the day will come that you will start to cry. Keep your back to the shower. You can wash yourself as you're crying. And as you release the intense emotion that is already inside of you, and may have been inside of you for hours, days, for that matter, months, years, release that intense emotion. You can tell yourself some positive self-talk like, as I wash my tears away. And literally, you look down and you see the water going down the drain, and all of that difficult emotion, all of that fear, anger, grief, whatever emotion it is and all of the negative thinking connected with it, you can just visualize it washing right down the drain, right out of you and right down the drain. Now, I recommend crying in the shower like this because at some point it is going to occur to you that you are turning into a prune. Or the water's starting to get cooler. You're running out of hot water. You see, you could cry in your bed, or you could cry in your car. But if you cry in your bed, you just might be tempted to cry and cry and cry and cry. Same thing if you're crying in your car. You could cry all the way home. Don't do that. When you allow yourself to cry in the shower and you're finished crying, or the water's starting to get cold, then you purposely turn around with your face to the shower spray, and you let the shower spray hit you right in the face. You will instantly stop crying. You will either stop crying or you will have to turn your head away in order to continue crying. This is because we all have built into us a natural reflex whereby we don't want to breathe in water. Our bodies don't want us to breathe in water. So this is a great tool to use. Let the water fall on your face, and as it does, you watch yourself talk. You can tell yourself something like, okay, I'm done now, it's over, I've had a good cry, the water's starting to turn cold, so I better get out of the shower. And as you do that, with the water falling on your face, you will calm down. At that point, you exit the shower and you proceed to step 6. And step 6 is not only for right after you get out of the shower, it's for all the following hours and the next day and all the way up to the next time you're in the shower. Because part of learning to cry in a healthy way is learning to convince yourself, I can stop crying. Yes, it's true. I can cry if I want to, but I can also stop myself from crying. Many people, when they begin, are not at all convinced of this. But then, we've not been taught these things since we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. So, in the 6th step, remind yourself that stop crying means stop crying for later too. For when you get out, not only just for when you get out of the shower, but for later. And so you go to work the next day, and something extremely emotion-provoking happens. Perhaps you're a nurse and 3 people die within a half hour of each other, and you had been attending to all of them. Of course you're going to want to cry. But you're in the middle of your shift, so you tell yourself, not now, not now, later, later. I'll cry when I'm in the shower. That's when I can cry. Now this will take some practice. Be gentle with yourself. No one's ever taught you how to do this before. So of course, collectively, we don't know. Collectively, we're scared to death of crying. Think we're going to melt like the Wicked Witch of the West. So go slow with yourself and be gentle with yourself. But please know, if you follow these steps and do it diligently and do it repeatedly, you will get to a point where you cry in the shower, you could cry heaving, sobbing cries in the shower. But the next day and the next day, you have something to do. If you're a doctor, nurse, first responder, you're a parent at home with your children now, you want to make this the best possible time for them. Something happens, you hear something on TV, you get frustrated. Again, those emotion-provoking thoughts are dancing around in your head, pushing against your eyeballs, and you want to cry. But you tell yourself, no, not now, later, when I'm in the shower by myself. That's when I'll cry. I can do that. Yes, this takes practice, but if you practice and keep at it, you will get to where you are able to help yourself so that you're not crying in the middle of a work shift, not crying in the car on the way home, not sobbing in front of your children. You are giving yourself permission to have your emotions and to express them in the way that nature has designed us to express them. And yet you are, to use the old way that we used to think about this, we are at work and in our relationships still in control. So following these steps, not only in this video, but in the earlier videos also, I hope that you're learning how to honor your emotions, to come to know yourself, your emotional self, and embrace your emotional self and express your emotions in a healthy way. The next video will be for parents, teachers, and everyone who is a child at heart, to take a look at how to interact with children in a healthy emotional way, to raise children who are never told, don't cry, but learn to be emotionally open and healthy with their emotions so that they recognize when they do stray into fear-based thinking and know right away what to do about it. We can raise children this way. We can, ourselves as adults, we can transform ourselves this way. It takes understanding and practice, and some of that anger I mentioned before to turn into determination to say to ourselves, I will do this, I must do this, I am doing this. Follow all your strategies for healthy coping with emotions, anxiety and other emotions. Remember to do your diaphragmatic breathing when you're getting out of the shower from having a good cry. That's the time to launch yourself right into diaphragmatic breathing, deep breaths. That also will help you stop crying and stay stopped in your crying. You go out, wear your mask, whatever positive action you can take to help others during this time. Remember that positive action that helps others will help you also with your emotions. And do know that heaven is with us. May your angels bless you.